Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Standard Bank webinar hosted by SBFC, which is Standard Bank Financial Consultancy. My name is Ketwe Kunene. I'm just the mere coordinator and buckler for the day. Today we're talking getting the most out of life with limited financial resources, and we're going to have an interactive panel discussion led by Errol Meyer, Faiza Khan, and four dynamic and talented young panelists. Together they'll unpack generational approaches to financial planning. But before I hand over to them and introduce you to them, I want to do some housekeeping. First of all, this is going to be about 50 minutes to an hour, so get comfortable. Secondly, make sure the volume on your taskbar is as loud as possible so you can hear us clearly. Then if you have any questions at all during the session, you are more than welcome to type the questions in the panel on your right-hand side of the screen. Look for the title says questions, type the question up, and then at the end of the session, we'll address the question for you so that we don't disturb the flow. Lastly, I just want to make sure the sound on your side is okay before we carry on to make sure that everybody can hear me. So what I need you to do, look for a small high five on the very same panel I'm talking about. If you can just click that for me, that will indicate that you can hear me, and then we can carry on. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Sinako. Thank you, Renia. Mobile, I see you. Thank you. Nehemia, thank you. Michelle, Michael, all right, all the high fives are going up, so sound is good. Thank you very much. So let me tell you a bit about who is talking to you today. We've got 6 people in the room, excluding myself. We've got Mr. Errol Meyer, our resident DJ, who's a certified financial planner and admitted advocate of the High Court SA. He holds qualifications in finance, law, taxation, and teaching, and he is our advisory and propositions legal specialist here at Standard Bank. He's going to be partnered with Faiza Khan. She is a senior legal specialist at Liberty. She has an LLB degree as well as her master's degree and is an admitted attorney as well. Faiza has also completed a postgraduate diploma in certified financial planning and is passionate about the financial planning industry, which she has been a legal advisor for in 7 years. Then we have 4 young, talented, and dynamic panelists, like I told you, who are going to help us unpack this topic. I'll start with the rose amongst the thorns. Her name is Thandeka Zuma. She's currently in the process of completing her BCom Industrial Psychology degree. She has an innate passion for people and developing interpersonal relationships, be it in corporate or personal spaces. She spends her spare time volunteering at Dream Center Hospice and Zakhe Children's Home. This is where she says she lives our country's finest value of Ubuntu. Then we have 3 gentlemen. The first is Karabo Dlodlo. He has been in the financial planning space since 2015. It is when he was studying towards his degree in financial management when he started investing on the JSE through a company that he founded. He says he has always been attracted to creating freedom from a financial point of view through business, investing, and money management. Then lastly, we've got 2 gentlemen who are a set of twins. The first one is Shakil Shandulal. He has a BCom accounting degree, which he says has helped him to learn to track where every single cent goes, but also has the knowledge and expertise to help guide where to direct those cents so they grow in the long term. For him, growing up with a single parent and 3 other siblings taught him the concept of spending what you need and investing the remainder instead of wasting it on non-essentials. And his twin brother, which is the last panelist, Irshad Shandulal, he also has a BCom accounting degree and has used his knowledge of financial planning to pursue his passion of educating those close to him and around him on how to change their mindset and approach of investments, retirements, and emergency funds. His mission is to make a difference in people's lives and impart his knowledge so that people can make better choices in life and not repeat their parents' mistakes. So, as you can hear, we are going to have a session like no other, and I don't want to waste any more time talking, so I'm going to hand over to our esteemed panelists to take us on our financial planning journey. Mr. Errol Meyer, thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to you to start and take us on this ride.
Well, thank you, Katiwe. Well, good day, all attendees, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we have an interesting session with some of our young Standard Bank and Liberty financial planners, the millennials, they call themselves. Now, most people are familiar with the concept of baby boomers, born in the 1940s to the 1959. These are also the people who are in retirement and some going into retirement. They are typically age 60 and older. Their concerns are mainly retirement and that their money will last, making provision for and affording escalating medical costs the real concern to them. Now, following on their heels are Generation X, your 30-year-old and older. Many of them are typically the sandwich generation, where they must look after their parents as well as their young children. Many of them often come out of a broken family where the experience of divorce in the family was not uncommon in their upbringing. Surely, one must appreciate that the environment that people grew up in must have shaped their value belief system. A person's value belief system is often the driver and foundation of how we formulate our financial goals, since it is these things that matters to us. So typically, a financial goal of a 35-year-old will be to provide for the education of his child and follow a saving strategy to achieve that goal. There will still be children, but as marriage, perhaps much later in life. The third generation is the one that catches my attention. Hence, my reason for inviting them today to join us in the panel discussion. Yes, our millennials. We will be discussing financial planning and their value belief system as the driver of setting goals and what they experience in their age group when consulting. The typical age group varies from 20 to about 36. Their challenges are typically to buy a new car or a home for the first time. Now, recent research by the industry indicates that they make up of about 40% of South African workforce. Interesting to note that they are not obsessed with technology, but understand how to use technology to operate in this world. They challenge the traditional values, such as to be married by the age of 26, have kids by 30, etc. To explain to them that the marital power in marriages, where the wife was not allowed to sign and open bank accounts without the assistance of a husband, was well and alive prior to 1984, puzzles them, and such information will often be downgraded to fake news. To tell them that the married wife was not allowed to submit a tax return and that her income was deemed to be that of the husband is stretching their imagination. Yet those were the values in the pre-1984 world. Going back to 1984, it was unheard that one day same-sex marriages will be allowed and even legalized. I refer to civil union marriages. The use of online and mobile tools has created the culture of, I can do it myself and stop telling me how to do it. Now, I can understand that as a baby boomer. I discovered that YouTube is a valuable source of information. I quickly learned to change the washers of my leaking taps, what is a septic tank all about, how to structure a research thesis, and yes, guidance how to deal with kids of today. Does the problem lie with me or with them? Well, I've concluded neither. And I reminded myself that people are not difficult, they are just different. So next time my daughter tells me how important it is to have a credit score, which goes against all my teachings as a lecturer of financial planning, namely to be debt-free, I will listen. Just recently, I read an article claiming that generational wealth planning is on the rise. Baby boomers are passing on their wealth to the next generations. And it becomes important to have a thorough understanding of a changing value belief system, which can typically be classified as baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and the latest Generation Z, who seems to have other relationships. Very little distinction between online friends and physical friends. When trying to provide some parental guidance to my youngest teenage daughter, she argues that my experiences of life is of little value to her. Well, we have all heard that before, but strangely, I think that she may have a point. Our world and experiences are sometimes a world apart. Now that I've got that off my chest, and before we get to our panelists, I'm going to ask Faiza Khan to take us through the traditional approach of financial planning, the journey that we are familiar with. Thereafter, we will have a discussion on values and goals for millennials and how we should make sense of our changing world. Faiza.
Thank you so much, Errol, and thank you so much for having me here today to chat to you guys a little bit. So what I want to look at today is really the traditional financial planning approach that we have been accustomed to for many, many, many years. So traditionally, when it comes to financial planning, people have been placed in boxes depending on which life stage they have been in. And those or those types of boxes will determine their financial planning needs. And it is somewhat predefined. So for example, if you were starting out in life and if you had started your first job, for example, you would typically be aged between 18 and 26 years old. You would be known as a young achiever. So what is a young achiever? A young achiever is someone that is likely to be unmarried. It's someone that would have no children, presumably, and they would be in a situation where they would have a little bit of debt, perhaps study loans or possibly vehicle finance. And their financial planning priorities would be wanting to create wealth, wanting to save, wanting to invest, possibly. And their greatest risk would be how to protect their income generating ability. So they would typically want to be investors and look at protecting their income. We can differentiate between the young achiever and our next stage of life, which is the young parent. And what is the young parent? I think as the title suggests, it's someone who has recently started a family. It's someone that has minor children, that possibly is married, and it's the person that would need to look at how to provide a safe and secure home for their young families. And that is typically your young parents. And the young parents' needs differs to the needs of the young achiever, because besides creating wealth and protecting their income, they would also need to ensure that they protect the income needs of their dependents. So the young parent would typically be aged between 26 and 36 years old. And those two groups are what Errol referred to as millennials as we know today. The next stage of life that I would like to bring your attention to is the established provider. And the established provider is generally aged between 37 and 59 years old, so your Generation X typically. And the established provider has children that are a bit older. It could be children that are leaving high school or have started university or leaving university. And so you see that from a financial planning perspective, the needs again start to evolve and change. So the red flags that become important to the established provider is retirement starts becoming a worry. So traditionally, from a financial planning perspective, the established provider would start to worry about retirement, and any risk planning that they have done in the past would need to be re-looked at, because the need has evolved and the need has changed from a dependency perspective. The last stage of life that I would like to look at from a financial planning perspective is the empty nester. So the empty nester is really your baby boomers, as Errol had discussed previously. And the empty nester is called the empty nester because the kids have left home. So you are in this final life stage. Your children have left home, so your dependency needs have been minimized. Your retirement savings have really been settled, and you worry about how to make the money that you have saved last as long as possible, so that you are not in a situation where you outlive your funds. So your investment choices become a priority, and the amount of money that you are drawing on an annual basis becomes a talking point that you'd have to discuss and bear in mind when you are having your financial planning discussions with your planner. So these are your typical traditional life stages financial planning approach that many of us have been used to for the longest times. Now, when it comes to your life stage, the financial planning product becomes quite important. And you'll see that that differs between the different life stages that you're dealing with. So for example, if you're dealing with your young achiever, the most utilized financial planning product or financial planning solution is your investment planning products or your income protection products, where you would look at ensuring that your risks such as disability and dread disease has been covered. When you're looking at your young parents, for example, life cover becomes quite important depending on how many dependents you have, and re-looking at that product as your situation changes and maybe you have more than one child in the future. Those products would need to be looked at. If you are an established provider, you start focusing on your retirement planning products. That would be your pension funds or your provident funds based at your employer, or it could be your retirement annuity funds, and ensuring that you do preserve those benefits as you move job in the future. When you are looking at your empty nesters, it's your post-retirement products that become important, your annuity products, whether it's a life annuity or it's a living annuity, and the discussions there that you're having with your financial advisor is how to ensure that you do not outlive the money that you have saved. So you'd be looking at the percentage that you are drawing out of this product so that it can last you as long as possible. And so we never ever have to worry about the type of product, because it's the solution that becomes important. And I think that when you're looking at your financial planning journey, it's important that you as an individual are taken into account. Let's quickly have a look at your goals from an investment perspective. And I think investment planning becomes, quite a deep and meaningful conversation that you would have to have with your financial planner about literally your dreams and aspirations. Because if nothing else, investment planning must be goals-based. So it's what you as an individual wants to achieve over a term. And if you look at the slide, it's really a roadmap. And it's a roadmap that's on a timeline, where you have certain goals that you might need to save for, and you have a different period for those savings. So for example, it could be a holiday in 3 years, or to ensure that your child's education has been taken care of over a 5-year period. You could maybe want to save and purchase your dream car in cash. And that savings could take you 10 years to achieve, but that is in fact an investment goal that you might have. If it's not a car in 10 years, it could be a holiday home in 15 years. It could be to ensure that you retire comfortably in 30 years' time, and that you never have to worry about your medical savings over a longer period. And these are all investment goals that you would have to think about and plan accordingly with your financial planner. And that is all I have to share with you today, and I will be handing back over to Errol. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, Fiza. So let's get to our panel today. When I grew up, I was told that young kids should only be seen and not be heard, but today we got to listen to you. So let us start in with Karabo. Now, a question that I have for you. What intrigues me is, what got you interested in a career as a financial planner?
Thank you, Errol. The quick answer would be freedom and control. Just to explain a little bit, if I go back to my high school years, I realized early that I got the entrepreneurial bug. So with that, I actually started selling sweets and other products that weren't available at my high school tuck shop to my friends and classmates. Later on, I actually discovered that you can create freedom through finance. So I started investing while I was still studying in varsity, as mentioned. But to answer your question, so as a financial planner, you have control, or you have the freedom to design your own work schedule. So you can set up your own meetings, manage your own diary, and naturally through the work that we do for our clients, we have more control over our financial future. So that will be my answer to you, freedom and control.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Shouldn't one say perhaps financial freedom, because this is what financial planners do, to help our clients to become financially free. So I like that. Thandeka, let's move over to you. Now, as a young financial planner, do you think the way that we communicate with our clients has changed?
Well, Errol, my answer would be yes and no. So I have to keep reinventing myself and adapting with technology. The communication style that I largely use depends on the clients at that time. So I would use tools aligned with the different clients to educate them. At the same time, I feel that it's important to maintain the personal touch. So for example, I've got a client from 1929. Initially, when I met him, the meetings were personal. I had to visit him for every meeting that we had. But over time, he was able to get an email so that we could communicate over email as opposed to me seeing him all the time.
Well, thank you for that. Shakil, you and your twin brother have two siblings and grew up in a household with a single parent. At our previous discussions, you had some strong views about what people are overlooking when it comes to their finances.
Thank you, Errol. Well, coming from a traditional background where the father would mainly be the person that would take care of the finances, and coming from my family where we experienced my parents divorcing from a young age, it enabled my mom to be the person that takes care of the finances. And obviously, with being someone that didn't have many experiences, a lot of mistakes were made, which I'm sure our viewers can relate. And from that, from a young age, from about 16 all the way to university, my brother and I, not just because we studied accounting, but because we knew the language better for my mom, we ended up taking over the finances. And with that, my brother and I, we ended up creating a budget plan that allowed us to restructure the whole budget of the whole house, which enabled us to control all over the finance, and enabled us to not only eliminate any wastages, but allowed us to be smart with the money. And throughout this time, all of the household income did decrease together with the expense increase, but our lifestyle did end up staying the same.
I like what you say there, the word budget, and that will never change. I mean, depending on which generation, doesn't actually make a difference.
Yes.
It's budgeting, it's usually the starting point, and this is still what we do today. Okay, let's get to Ishak. Now, Ishak, you are the twin brother. In our early discussions, you made use of a GPS example when you explained the role of a financial planner. I find that interesting, since my choice of words would have been a compass, but then you would perhaps not know how to read it. Explain to us the relevance of your GPS example.
Thank you, Errol. What I said before, like a GPS, a financial planner can keep you on the right path in your financial planning journey and help you get to where you want to go. But a GPS needs to know where you want to go in order to help you reach your destination.
I thought that makes sense. Quite interesting, the choice that one would have a GPS instead of a compass. All right. So you make a statement that millennials tend to save rather than to invest. So what do you mean by that?
The reason I said it was because these are characteristics that you see with millennials that stay installed all the way throughout their stages in life. They struggle to balance the scale between saving and investing. I would not say it's a millennial thing, but it's how they were educated and brought up. Millennials tend to save so they can experience short-term pleasures as opposed to investing for their long-term future, which can grant them financial independence.
Yeah, the word term is what I like there, because when we talk about goals-based financial planning, it is the type of goal that's based on your value belief system, and then the term you put to that. So you, same fundamentals, but the thinking may be that the term could be a little bit different. Okay, well, let's open up this discussion now. And I'm going to open up this question to you. Let me start with this one. Is it realistic to have retirement as one of your most important goals?
So I'd say the definition has changed. So retirement's no longer a thing where you work 40+ years of your life and then sail into the sunsets with your treasure chest. I think it's become more of a rewiring and reskilling phase in life, where I think on average you start seeing millennials changing careers every 10 years, for instance. But so I think the question has become, when will you become financially independent versus at what age, or how much should I contribute to my retirement savings, for instance?
So that will, I get the feeling it's like shorter term is more important than a long term, because the baby boomers would think about the retirement. It's the most important thing, and that's what you'll see in the adverts, where the focus may have changed a little bit, and we're not too worried about that because we have the skills, and why put a date to it? And I think this is what we are saying.
Adding on to what Karabo has said, in the world, in the olden days, we always lived up to retirement at 65. Where in the modern world that we live, where advancements in not only medicine but also the technology, which enables us to not only live longer, but also it allows us to work a lot longer. Which for me, with that, I would say retirement has to be one of the most important aspects for us to considering today, because we need to account for those extra years that we're going to live and work.
Yeah, 100%. I like the words financial freedom. Why peg a date to it? It's when you're financially free in order to pursue another hobby or just to go and relax. Okay, so how important is the concept of fairness, and especially with reference to consumers that must make informed decisions?
Well, fairness is crucial in our careers. It is important that we don't sell clients pipeline dreams. It's important that we educate them and add value so that clients can make an informed decision. And I believe in doing so, the journey becomes fruitful for both myself and my clients.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we spoke about the retirement. We can challenge that concept. Fairness is very important. So let me ask the panel this. On the topic of fairness, do you think one should challenge retirement funds which prescribes an age where one must retire from employment? After all, you mentioned fairness. From a fairness point of view, isn't that age discrimination?
Yes, absolutely, it is.
Firstly, I think the idea of telling someone when he or she will retire, I think is age discrimination. With people living much longer than ever before, many competent and skilled employees tend to prolong their retirement date as they feel they still have more in them to carry on working and retire at a much later date. At the exact same time, we could have a young individual who starts his very own successful business franchise who may decide to retire early after being financially free.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, let's move on to something else. We're talking about the short-term goals and the savings element. Do you think that a savings goal towards a car may become less relevant for the younger generation, since Uber may be a more convenient way to get from point A to B? Is it not true that millennials and the younger generation would rather have access to things rather than to own things?
Yes, I would say yes, because the culture that corporations are moving to is having the use of assets without actually owning it. I can give you the examples of Uber, the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media owner, creates no content. Alibaba, the most valuable retailer, has no inventory. Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate.
And that shows how our value-based system, how the values differ, which has an impact on the goals and the saving patterns. 100%.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Rashad just said, I think for millennials, the thing has become more around independence and mission driven. I mean, we're starting to see different goals so goals are still important, but the goals have now shifted from, let's say, collecting status symbols such as cars, housing, etc., to more experiences. So it's become more about how can I design a life that actually I can reach financial goals through as well. So it's become more experience based versus items and just collecting, like I said, status
and
symbols.
to acquire more skills.
Yeah.
And this is, in my days, we talk about job hopping. But I think when I say the word job hopping, is actually just acquiring more and more skills. It's not actually the job hopping as I used to know it. I think this is what I hear you are saying. So, but Faiza explain, let me put the slide on. Faiza, explain to us the journey through life. Now, there's the slide in front of you. How do you think that roadmap that Faiza has shown us, how do you think that has changes? Because we've put some certain time limits and a certain date, we're going to have this goal and that goal, etc. Because yours may be changing just because of your value beliefs will have different goals and you may have different timelines. So how would that resonate with you?
I mean, if you look at the life stages, so you're seeing more people starting to become established providers before they become parents. So they want to almost become an established parent. So I think the shift has, like it ties into the previous question, the shift has gone into a work-life integration versus a work-life balance. So we're starting to see more millennials design their work schedule or their mission around things they also want to do outside of just work. So they've got goals they still want to achieve. I mean, like I said, you're starting to see millennials having more kids later in life. And there's a company called Ameritrade. They actually issued a survey saying millennials are actually becoming known as the boomerang generation. So we're going to college or leaving the house and coming back. So that also ties into this life stage perspectives. We're seeing less young parents and more people skipping that to become more established providers than an established parent at a later stage in life.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Quite interesting. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the robo-advice. Now, with the rise of fintech and the robo-advice, what value does financial advisors then offer? Is it not true that financial advisors are being judged by right brain metrics or referred to as the human touch? Are we not becoming just a financial life coach?
Yes, because in a way, our goal and aim is to be with our clients throughout their life stages, not just when we meet them for the first time and never seeing them again. And coming back to robo-advisors, yes, a client can sit in a computer and click and choose his portfolio or the way he would structure his plan. But the problem with that is without the legal, accounting, and estate planning expertise, which the financial planner has, which enables him to add his human touch and avoid any gaps being missed onto the portfolio, that allows the client to be able to not only choose the correct product for the chosen by the advisor, but it enables him to make mistakes that he won't be able to pick up without the expertise of the advisor.
Just to add on to what Shakil just said, unlike a robo-advisor, a financial planner will hold your hand throughout your journey to reach your financial independence.
Yes. Okay, so I imagine, okay, what I hear you saying, and I agree with that. I imagine that the robo-advice will be a major help for many years to come. But I think when it comes to financial matters such as taxation, behavior of asset classes, strategic asset allocation, people are facing a myriad of options to consider holistically. In this respect, the educational role of a trusted financial planner will remain important for many years to come. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. Well, look, advisors are educational. We also bring that element of individualism, which allows us to give tailor-made advice, meaning that the advice that we give is in accordance to where you are in life and what you're going through at that time.
It's like connecting the dots.
Absolutely. So it goes back to that data versus information argument. So yes, robo-advice can collect different scenarios, just give you all the data you need, but information is what allows you to take action on what you're hearing. So I think the advisor looks at the bigger picture of how a decision in one area affects the overall portfolio.
So in a way, he's kind of like a project manager,
Exactly.
connecting those dots, what I said earlier.
I think the easiest way to explain this is just by an example. If would the client listen to the advice if he's sick, for example, would he prefer to follow the advice on his Google search, or the advice from an educated doctor that has all the foundations of and knowing on how to deal with a specific client? Obviously, we all know that the client would prefer picking someone that's much more educated to help the client.
I agree with that as well.
Okay, well, let's then end off with a final question to all of you. If I were to ask you, what will your final message be to the attendees? What would you say?
For me, financial planning is having the best of both worlds. The ability to plan for the future, but in the same breath, living in the moment.
Okay, I'll keep mine short. So I believe discipline equals freedom. So to put that into context, I think reaching your financial goals as a client is very possible. It just requires discipline to get there.
For me, being in the industry, my advice would be to start teaching our youth at a young age, rewire their education and beliefs to start implementing their financial planning early in their lives so that it becomes easier as they grow. Our school system does not teach or prepare our youth for any sort of financial planning that they will face for the rest of their lives. That's why it should be our role as planners to educate our youth.
I like that.
Financial planning and budgeting should not be a breadwinner thing, a parent thing, but rather a family thing where all of the family can engage together on it.
Well, thank you very, very much. So there you have it. So when you look for a financial planner, let me just summarize then. You choose the right person who understands you, and this is what we're talking about in this program, who understands my value belief system. And knowing that, they will help me set financial objectives to meet those personal needs. They would be there taking my hand to review annually and be there should circumstances change. And the financial freedom journey to a process be disciplined and stick to your plan. So that remains true, whether you're a baby boomer or you are a millennial. Well, thank you very, very much from my side. I don't know if you have any questions.
I will check for you, Errol. And while I check, just a reminder to all our listeners that the session is recorded and will be available on our Standard Bank YouTube channel. There will be a thank you note that will come out in a few days or so, and then you'll be able to get the link to that as well. Okay, so Errol, let me open up the questions and you can see.
We've got one question there, am I correct? Yeah, and that comes from Seneko.
Yes.
Seneko. Well, here we go. As a 32-year-old millennial, I had a late start of starting a retirement annuity, life investments, life cover, etc. My worry is my late start may affect my future financial freedom as well as my desire to buy a house. Beautiful question. Any comments on that? I would start to say, but it's never too late. It's never too late. What is most important, first thing, is to find out what are my goals and then put a strategy and a plan in place. And the retirement annuities aren't the only vehicles. I mean, if I listen to what was said earlier, retirement annuity is something that you can only access at the age of 55. And if we do have these shorter term goals, perhaps then one should be looking at tax-free investments. But if you're 32 years old, remember that I don't think 65 is the goal here. I think your goal should be around about 80. And I've got a good feeling that a 32-year-old can easily live off past the age of 100. So no, seen in that context, I don't think that is too late whatsoever. I don't know if there's any comments on that.
Errol, if I can just add, a nice way to catch up from a retirement savings perspective is that when you contribute to a retirement annuity, for example, SARS gives you this. So when you receive that rebate from SARS, instead of spending it, you plow it back into your retirement annuity, and that can assist you with catching up on the years that you've missed.
Nicely said, Faiza. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that seems like that was the question that came through. I hope everybody got what they needed from their session. And if you'd like to carry on your conversation with a financial advisor or financial planner, please walk into any Standard Bank branch and ask for a financial planner there. There will be one there for you. If you want an easier way, if you're a millennial and you're more in the technology side of things, then please SMS the word guide to 31791, the word guide to 31791, and then a financial planner will be in touch with you. And if you prefer an email, just send an email saying, I would like a financial planner to contact me. You send that to SBFC Voice and Digital at standardbank.co.za. That's SBFC Voice and Digital at standardbank.co.za. Thank you, Errol. Thank you, Faiza. Thank you, Thandeka. Thank you, Garabo. Thank you, Shakil. Thank you, Irshad. It's been a great conversation. I hope you guys got a lot from that, and we'll see you on the next one. Invites will be coming soon. Have a good day.